And welcome into Gator Bytes on the 1010XL.com podcast network. Also being simulcast on the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page. Today's Gator podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists, the Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center, providing an unparalleled level of care across numerous locations in both Jacksonville and St. Augustine. That includes Riverside, Northside, the South Side, the beaches, Fleming Island, and St. John's. He is Denny Thompson. I'm the hacker, Ryan Green. This will be roughly our new time if you're watching us live. If you're listening to it on demand, you can listen whenever. But Friday morning, a little earlier today, but usually Fridays around 9 a.m. or when we're going to try to do Gator Bytes this year. And 2 weeks from today, we will be reacting to the Florida-Utah game. It's hard to believe, Denny, 13 days away from year number 2 for Billy Napier and the Florida Gators.
Are you telling us you're going to be coming in here hungover in 2 weeks?
I don't think I'm going to have a lot to celebrate the previous night.
I disagree.
So, well, I mean, we're going to get into that because I think you and I have a differing opinion on that game. But you've been so caught up in traveling.
Yeah.
By the way, congratulations to your guy, Anthony Richardson, being named the starter in Indianapolis. And traveling not only with him, but around the country. NFL preseason, training camp. I had a little getaway to Orlando. You look on the calendar, we have college football a week from tomorrow.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt, Hawaii, Navy, Notre Dame, week 0, I guess is what they're calling it. But man alive, we are on the doorstep of the season.
You can't get fired up for Vandy, Hawaii.
You know what? It's the first college football in 8 months. I'll watch every snap of Vanderbilt, Hawaii.
Will you? Every snap?
Every
snap?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. I feel like it's kind of like
hack on this.
Really?
Dude, it could be 11 hacks versus 11 me's for the first college football game.
I would absolutely tune into that.
Yeah,
I'd watch every single
That would be appointment viewing.
That's pay-per-view. Is pay-per-view still a thing?
It is.
I guess for fighting.
Every once in a while.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think for me, it's a little bit like the NFL preseason. Hawaii and Vandy sounds amazing. Like, have your best friends over and let's party. For about 12 minutes. Right.
Look, I'm not saying.
But now, I will say Navy Notre Dame is intriguing. Isn't that like in Ireland?
It's in Dublin, yeah. Ireland.
That's intriguing. But, yeah, that following week, man, it's time to go. It's locked in. And I'm excited for Utah, Florida. I'm excited to see what's been brewing in the halls in Gainesville with a season of negativity and doubt and the second season of a staff. And man, I don't say this because it's a Gator podcast, but I'm hoping they shock the world because nobody is giving them a chance to do anything. I saw somebody yesterday talk about they're going to go 4-8. Like,
yeah, I don't know about that.
Come on, man.
I've said repeatedly this offseason I would take 7-5 right now, and you and I have talked about that. But back to since the last time you and I did this podcast, Graham Mertz officially announced as the starting quarterback. I think we all pretty much knew that, but it became official about a week and a half ago. Your reaction to Mertz being the starter and what it appears to be Max Brown maybe surpassing Jack Miller as the number 2 on the depth chart.
Yeah, I think Jack was going to have a hard time getting everybody's taste out of the mouth of his game action last year. Like,
the bowl game was bad.
Yeah, fair or not. And I don't know that was all his fault. It certainly was not all his fault. It was a team effort, but that's a lot to overcome. When that's the last game action, it's going to be harder to build trust with the staff and with teammates and all that kind of stuff. But I also think, Max Brown is just a really good athlete, and he presents some issues even in the run game. So I think that's a good spot for him to be. But I think Graham knows the deal. I think everybody knows the deal there. I haven't been to a practice this offseason because I have been traveling a lot, but I would assume that it's heavy run, heavy play action, make a couple plays. What little bit I have talked to the Florida staff, they seem very excited about this year's team, and genuinely. Like, they have no reason to tell me that if they're not. I'm not technically a media member, but they do. They seem excited. They seem like they can be a physical football team, and they feel like Graham fits that mold. So I'll trust them until we can't, right? I want to see it. But they're not going out there trying to lose football games. No. They're going out there trying to win. And they believe this gives them the best chance. And they believe that signing him gives them the best chance. And so if they believe that, I'm going to believe that until it shows otherwise.
You look at the skill position or the wide receiver position. We'll get to the running backs in a moment. It's Ricky Pearsall and then a bunch of unknowns. You got Caleb Douglas and Marcus Burke. And then after that, you arguably have 3 true freshmen in Andy Jean and Mizell and Eugene Wilson. So I guess my question is, with Wilson, Mizell, and Jean, in your experience, how much can you expect to get from true freshman wide receivers, albeit very highly recruited true freshman wide receivers? Or is this a situation where either Caleb Douglas or Marcus Burke is going to have to emerge to help Ricky Pearsall?
All the above. I think all of that. I don't think in today's game you can have 2 or 3 receivers. I think you need to have 4 or 5 guys that can contribute. Pearsall's good. Pearsall's special. He's going to get open. He's going to do his thing. Caleb Douglas, I got a chance to spend some time with in that week leading up to Anthony's Pro Day, and he is a very talented guy. Was it Vanderbilt? He kind of flashed last year a little bit. I got to see a little bit of that. He's a fluid runner. He's a good route runner. Very coachable guy. So I think he's going to have a good year as well. Marcus Burke is talented. Mm-hmm. I mean, he is trying to think. He needed to put a little bit of weight on. He needed to mature body-wise, and that's the only reason why he hasn't been on the field up to this point. And they're very excited about those other 3 guys. I think receiver is the one position, Hack, that you can come in as a freshman and make a very big impact. Right, I think receiver and running back's kind of the same thing there. But at receiver, you don't have to have that extra 15 pounds yet. Right, you can get away without it if you're running the right routes and you're in the right places. And that's the key thing: is can they make the right reads? Can they make the right adjustments? Do they do the right thing on choice routes, on option routes? If they can, and everybody's on the same page, then a freshman receiver can make an immediate impact pretty easily. And I know those 3 guys are all guys that they think are the future at Florida at the receiver position. They believe will turn that position back to what it used to be.
I was talking to some guys down in Gainesville last week, play some of those interviews next week on Hacker After Dark. And one of the things that kind of jumped out to me, they got a problem at tight end, right? They don't have really an established tight end. But what some of the guys that cover the team on a daily basis in Gainesville were telling me is you're going to see more Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne on the field together. You're going to see more 2 running backs on the field together. So when you go into a 3 wide receiver set, instead of 3 wide receivers, 1 running back, 1 tight end, you're likely to see 3 wide receivers with Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne on the field together, which I think is going to be interesting because the thought is this is a Florida team that's going to want to have long drives, gain 4, gain 3, gain 5, move the chains. But having playmakers like Johnson and Etienne on the field together was interesting when they pointed that out.
Yeah, Etienne's a real threat in the receiving game out of the backfield. I don't know that Montrell is. Montrell's a between the tackles type of guy. Etienne can do it all. So, I mean, I think if you go out there 20 personnel, the way you're suggesting there, the only thing you're doing in the running game is you're eliminating a gap, right? So when you have a tight end or a Y in the game, that's an extra gap in the run fit game that the defense has to account for. So you eliminate that, which puts the defense at a slight advantage in the run game. But then when you throw in there that they are going to have to stay in some type of nickel package to keep up with ETN out of the backfield, then that kind of rebalances that run game situation, right? So, I mean, I think it's probably something that they could be explosive in as long as their protection up front is good in the passing game. It's something that they could have a lot of success with. Without seeing it, I don't know, but that would be the first thing that comes to my mind is, okay, what's their protection look like in the passing game in 20 personnel? I don't think they're going to have any problem running the ball in just about every game, with the exception of the guys that nobody ever runs the ball on.
Yeah, Georgia, maybe LSU.
Right. But other than that, I mean, they're built to run. The offense that they run is something that they can get in and out of checks pretty easily with. And so if they feel comfortable in 20 personnel, let's see what it looks like against Utah. We're going to get to that game in a second. But Florida's personnel, while not deep and while not explosive everywhere, isn't as bad as what people think it is. It's still the University of Florida. It's still full of 3- and 4-star guys.
No, I agree. They're going to have a much better rotation on the D-line this year than they had last year.
Yeah,
not even close.
I don't know. I think we as fans overreact to everything, good and bad. And so you look at that bowl game and you look at the Vandy loss and you look at things like that and you automatically assume, this team's going to struggle against, and everybody starts naming middle-of-the-road SEC teams. They're still Florida. right? I'm still going to give them the benefit of the doubt. This roster that they have recruited was a higher ranked roster than probably 7 or 8 of the teams that they're playing against. That is a fact. And so now if Napier can coach them up in the second year and he knows what he's doing, and they know what they're doing and they play fast, I just don't think it's going to be a 5-win season.
Today's Gator Bytes podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. For the highest quality care, you can rely on Southeast Orthopedic Specialists for any orthopedic injury or concern. You can log on to their website by going to se-ortho.com, and you can listen for Southeast Orthopedic Specialist, the good doctor, Kevin Murphy, on Thursday mornings in the 7 o'clock hour with Jeff and Dan right here on 1010XL for his weekly analysis of injuries in sports. Defensively, 29-year-old Austin Armstrong. We talked about him a couple of weeks ago. I was told this, so I went back and watched as much as I could find on YouTube. If you watch the Southern Miss games that he was the coordinator in last year, the guy blitzes like nobody's business, all right? SEC offensive coordinators, Utah offensive coaches are watching that. He's got to be reined in a little bit. 13 days from now, you can't be sitting in the house every play, or Utah is going to figure that out and tear you apart. I mean, there's a gigantic difference between being a coordinator at Southern Miss and doing that and being a coordinator at Florida and doing that, correct?
Yeah, it depends on that guy on the other side of the field, not the coach, but the quarterback. There's some quarterbacks that when you blitz them, they freeze. There's other quarterbacks that when you blitz them, they make you pay. And you don't know that until you try it. And so I wouldn't rein him in until he gets burnt in week 1. You send the house if you want to, and let's find out how Utah reacts first, right? I have coached a lot of quarterbacks that the minute they see a blitz, everything in them tightens up, right? And now the game doesn't become so fluid and everything speeds up. And that's the reason why people blitz, right? You try to get the quarterback, you don't sack him, just get in his head, just get him off his spot. There's run blitzes, right? And run blitzes are something that can frustrate another team because all of a sudden they're handing the ball off and they're 2nd and 9, 3rd and 8, and then they know you're sending the house on 3rd and 8, right? And if they don't have that guy at receiver that can beat you one-on-one every single time, it gets very uncomfortable. Tennessee has that guy. Alabama has that guy. Georgia has that guy. I don't know anything about Utah. Maybe they do. I have no idea, but they would have to show me. Right, I would come out there with that same personality, that same aggression, and we would have to see. Now, if that guy if they prove that they've got the guy outside and they can block us up and that quarterback can sit there and deal it all day long, okay, then you back off. Man, go in there with your hair on fire and who you are. There's a reason he was hired, right? There's a reason why he's 29 years old and he's the offense or the defense coordinator at Florida. Don't neuter him. Do not neuter him. You didn't hire him to sit back there and be conservative. Bring the freaking house and let's see what you can do.
And I think that's the plan. And look, the Gator defense, I'm not breaking any news here. They were not very good last year, and a lot of those guys returned. But if you look at what they did in the portal, couple of linebackers, couple of D linemen, couple of guys in the secondary, if nothing else for that Gator defense this year, I think they have more guys. Gervon Dexter last year was playing 60 plays a game. He was dead in the fourth quarter. He had nothing left. There was just nobody to come in to spell him, to get him a blow for a couple of plays. You're not going to have that issue now. McClellan's probably their best defensive lineman, but he can come out for a couple of plays now because you have more bodies, more 300-pound bodies to put in there. So that alone makes me think the Gator defense will be improved.
Yeah, I think when you look at Florida, and I'm going to draw a basketball analysis here, or analogy. I don't know. I don't watch basketball, football of every other team. Maybe every school in the country has this, but Florida has been particularly frustrating because on the basketball side, they go 8 minutes without scoring a basket. And on the football side, as fans, we sit there and we watch and we're like, wait, that guy's uncovered, right? And it happens time and time again. And it wasn't just with Napier. It also happened under Mullen, right? All of a sudden you look up and there's 3 plays a game that are complete busts. Right, and it wasn't even an ability thing. It was a misalignment thing. That's the thing you want to look at week 1, and that's the thing that if you're Utah, you test. You motion, you shift, you do everything you can to see if Florida has fixed that problem, right? And like I said, maybe every team does this, and I'm just not paying attention. But, man, it seems very elementary to me that at that level, as much as you've practiced, as much as these guys are getting paid as coaches, that you can't line them up, right? And so I'm interested to see, can we line up? Can they line up? Because I think athlete for athlete, they're fine. But if you get out leveraged, if you get out flanked, if you leave somebody uncovered, they're going to burn you every single time. And so I think week one, that's what you look for. You look for, can they line up? Are they aggressive? Can they tackle?
The Utah thing is interesting because, look, I'm not, an encyclopedia on Utah's roster. I talk to guys out there and people that cover the team. So here's what I've gathered. Cam Rising, all Pac-12, borderline All-American quarterback, back for another year. He tore the ACL in the Rose Bowl. By all indications, he's going to be able to play in 13 days. What people may not know is that Utah had a couple of injuries to their quarterback depth chart during fall camp, as recently as a couple of weeks ago. So there's just not a lot behind Cam Rising right now. He's going to play 8 months removed from an ACL. But if you're the Utah staff and you've been a coach, you've trained quarterbacks for years, knowing that there's not a lot behind him, knowing he's 8 months removed from an ACL and you're probably not going to run him a whole lot, which is part of his game, I mean, what does that do to the Utah offense in 13 days?
Yeah, that's tough. You want to say as a coach that it does nothing. You want to say that we're going to lean on this guy's strengths, and he's played a lot of football. He's seen a lot of football. He knows how to protect himself. But you also know injuries just happen. You can protect yourself all you want to, and injuries just happen.
And you're 8 months removed from the knee.
Yeah, that to me, like if you're cleared to play, you're good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no different than when you were playing healthy. Like you're good. Maybe you've gotten older and you don't move quite as quickly or something like that. But as far as core health goes, if you've truly been cleared to play, then that shouldn't be a concern of the staff. But I will say, knowing that you have a whole season in front of you, a season with pretty high expectations, I think it probably does come into play. I think it probably does. In a situation or two, you do tell him, hey, man, throw that ball away. Don't try to go pick up the 6 or 7. Just throw it away. We don't have anything behind you. And depending on the quarterback, that can be paralyzing, man. That can be like all of a sudden now you've got a quarterback who's been playing free his whole life, and he's being told to play a certain way. And I don't know that Utah is telling him this. But if they are, that can be something that makes the game a little more difficult for them because they're not playing in their natural habitat, if you will, right? So I think it does affect the quarterback play. I think it probably does affect the play calling to an extent, but it's probably more in the game of those, hey, make something happen plays that the kid probably doesn't have what he had before. And he's great at that. Mm-hmm. He's great. Everything breaks down. He's going to find a way to not take a loss, right? Or to pick up that 3rd and 6 when you've got everything covered. Hey, hats off to him if he still can. And hats off to that Utah staff if they allow him to do that. But, yeah, I think it would be a very easy thing to pull back on that, which is absolutely an advantage for Florida.
Credit to you. We sat in this room last year, and you were pretty gung-ho that Florida was going to win that game against Utah, and you were proven to be right. It took an interception with 30 seconds to go at the 5-yard line, but nevertheless, you were right. Here we are now, 13 days before the rematch in Salt Lake City. I, like basically everybody that I know in the media, fans, family, friends, etc., is again picking Utah to win. And again, here you are, and not to put words in your mouth, but based on talking to you, I think you might like Florida's chances.
Oh, I have very little worries about this game.
Going to Salt Lake City, the first SEC team ever to go out there to open up the year on a Thursday night on national television, and you have very little worries about this game?
Mm-hmm.
Whew. Explain, please.
I think it's weird that I have to explain.
This team was
I really do, because
Utah was in the Rose Bowl last year.
Yeah,
you're going into their place
last year.
First SEC team ever. You don't think those fans are going to be a little fired up?
Did I miss something? Are the fans playing?
No, but you know as well as I do in college football. Do you think Florida wins that game in Salt Lake City last year under the same scenario?
Yeah.
Or did the swamp matter?
No, I think they win. I think that. Listen, okay. Don't go gamble money on what I'm saying. I'm just telling you what I feel. Like, I know very little about the Utah roster.
I know they were in the Rose Bowl last year.
Right.
That's good enough for me.
Okay. So you know very little about the Utah roster.
I know Dalton Kincaid's gone. Cam Rising's there. They got a couple other all Pac-12 receivers.
Okay.
They got talent.
Okay, let me ask you this. If you go back to just a talent perspective, raw talent perspective, who's better? Which of those teams had the higher recruiting classes consistently?
Florida.
Okay. Who's played in more hostile environments, Utah or Florida? Florida. Please don't think about it.
Well, right, but I mean, hostile. They've lost in all those environments too.
Okay. Well, you're asking me what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Okay.
Okay. I think that at times you can have an off season with a bunch of talented guys, and you can have a bad season and then an off season to where it becomes one of those things where they become more coachable because everybody's picking them to lose. And you've got a staff in their second year, and you've got a whole season of pissed off behind this team. And I almost think that going into Salt Lake City and it is us against the world is a mentality that helps Florida. I think they get off that bus. They understand we're about to get our knuckles bloody. We're about to be in a street fight, and we're here for it. And so I don't think that Utah has been in that situation to where they have I know they haven't. An not underrated, a mad SEC team who's been talked down about and talked down to the entire offseason, coming into their house, and everybody's assuming that they're about to get the brakes beat off of them. Utah hasn't faced that either. This is a first for Utah as well.
Agreed. For what it's worth, and again, I know the fans don't play the game, Utah doesn't lose there very much. I mean, their home record over the last decade
makes it even sweeter. That if you don't think that's being pumped through the halls of Gainesville right now, every single day of they don't lose at home, it's a hornet's nest, all of the things that people say, like they never get these games. They're going to be excited. It's Thursday night. You're the only game. Well, man, that plays for Florida too. I think if you went through that locker room right now and you said, would you rather play in these circumstances at Utah or at Florida? I bet a very high percentage of them would say Utah. You don't get to that level without having that double bird at the entire stadium as you're standing on their 50 after just whipping their ass. Like, you don't get to this level without having that dog in you.
Yeah.
Florida's got that. I don't know how it's going to play out. But right now, I'm not scared of Utah, just like Florida's not scared of Utah.
This might be just a talking point. I want to go quick here. Altitude, they've talked about that.
Yeah.
How much of a factor will that be?
Now that's fair. That is a factor. That'll jump on your back really quick, especially, and that's one of those things where you have to manage your emotions early. You can't get out there and fly around and jump around in pregame because that will jump on your back very quickly. So I'm assuming the Florida staff is dealing with that. There's ways that you can prepare for that, but it's not like the real thing at all.
Well, Napier's been talking about that for months.
Yeah, that is an issue. That is an issue, and it's hard to get a team fired up to play and then say, hey, let's just manage these emotions pregame, right? But that is a necessity when you go out there. And listen, I'm nothing against Utah. I don't know anything about Utah. I just know Florida is a blue chip program, a blue blood program going into a stadium that's never done this before. I'm going to take the people who have been there before.
Today's Gator Bytes podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. They're Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center, providing an unparalleled level of care across numerous locations in both Jacksonville and St. Augustine. That includes Riverside, Northside, the South Side, the beaches, Fleming Island, and St. John's. We got 2 minutes to go. I know you got to get out of here quickly. 13 days out. What's the coaching staff doing with the players? Is the game plan starting to get implemented? Where are we with that side of things inside of 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think probably next week you start to get into your game week preparations, right? Especially with it being a Thursday night game. You don't have an opponent the week before. I think as a staff they've broken this down. They know what they're going to do, but they probably haven't gotten really deep into that with the team because you're still in that camp mentality of we got to find out what we have on a base level, and we've got 12 games to play. So I think probably next week they start to unfold that game plan, start to put together scripts, start to really dig into film with the players on who they're going to be facing. And that all starts to come together probably, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. And then hopefully by the time you get to your travel day, everybody feels good and you've marked off what the players aren't comfortable with or what they can't do. And maybe you've added some things that they've surprised you with. So, they're going to go in there, and I think the game plan is pretty obvious. We're going to try to run it right down their throat, and we're going to try to play aggressive defense, and we're going to see how this comes out.
We got one more show next Friday, and then 2 weeks from today, we will be reviewing Florida and Utah. Again, it basically opens the Labor Day weekend slate Thursday night, August the 31st. You'll hear the game, of course, right here on 1010XL. He is Denny Thompson. I'm the hacker, Ryan Green. Thank you for watching and listening to Gator Bytes on 1010XL.com and on the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page.